to this edition of Pop and Scott Talk Baseball. It almost sounds like I'm doing a breakdance, Pop and Scott. But this week, getting into the grind. I've been talking about it all year long.
We're in August. We're in August, so this is the dog.
Yeah, this is the heat is turned up outside and on the field. People are playing for something now, except for the two teams that they keep showing nationally this weekend, which are the Braves and the Mets. The Braves are so far 5 games for having home field through the whole thing, and
well, the Braves have had. I've got a little thing. We'll get into it in a little while, but
okay, go
the
ahead.
Braves have had a little They haven't been doing well lately, but they play in the Mets and they're getting well. In 3 games they've outscored them 34-3.
Right.
That's.
Right.
I mean, that's.
Yeah, the Mets. The
The
Mets is waiting for next year.
1-0. It was 1-0. The Braves went 1-0 in the 7th inning, and then all of a sudden, a couple of guys came out of the bullpen for the Mets, couldn't get anybody out.
Well, they traded Robertson, so everybody moved the spot, and that was their weakness the whole season was bullpen and people on base. That was the two things.
And then Alonso went in the dugout after he struck out in the 9th inning and demolished his helmet.
Well, when Pete Alonso goes up there, and I know we're talking about it on my homer, but when Pete goes up there and swings for the fences, that's understandable. When he strikes out, that's understandable. That's his job.
They were shut out.
Yeah, but the other guys on the team, I looked at the box score. I tried to watch the game, and I couldn't watch it. It didn't say it was blacked out. It was on my local Fox network. It just wouldn't play. I don't know why or whatever.
Yeah, it was on Fox. I watched it on Fox.
Right. Fox actually had 3 games last night, whatever area you were in. That's
right.
What you got.
We had Atlanta in the Mets.
Which sucks because if your out-of-market team is one of the other teams that were playing, you don't get to see them. You're blacked out from them.
Right.
It's horrible. Major League needs to fix that.
In the Nationals, I was switching back and forth because both games were close. The Nationals got the bases loaded 3 times in the first 6 innings and got 1 run. They got the bases loaded again in the 8th inning, and all they could get in was 1 run on a little ground ball to tie it. And I said, well, here we go. And then Ruiz came up in the bottom of the 9th. And the first pitch, he hit it 400 feet, and they won the game.
Nice.
But, I mean, and now today, Williams is pitching for him in the top of the first. The first pitch was a home run. He walked the guy. And the next pitch was a home run. And they're losing 3-0 already. But I mean, that's what I've expected, and I don't get too upset. But I mean, that's our 2 teams. Our 2 favorite teams are not doing very well. Let's just put it that way.
Right. Yeah, but the Orioles, I got my Reds hat on. I am really pulling for them to get in the playoffs so I can watch them play. Same with the Orioles. I really want to watch the Orioles game today. Can't. So I might have it on the background on the radio or something. I think they're playing at 4:15 today, if I remember correctly. Well, let's go over the standings. We got Baltimore still 2 games ahead. The fight is in last place for Boston and New York. And listening to Boston fans, all they want to do is beat New York. It's hilarious right now.
Well, I mean, if you don't think you're going to make the playoffs, you might as well want to beat your main rival.
Right. The Twins told the Guardians, hold my beer. We're going to go ahead and win this thing. They're actually respectable at 61-58.
Yeah, they lost to the Phillies day before yesterday, but beat them last night.
Right. They're still probably short a little bit on the pitching, but we'll see. Anything can happen.
Can I say one thing quickly? Tampa Bay was playing Cleveland, and then Friday night and Saturday night, Tampa Bay was playing Cleveland, and they beat them both nights on walk-offs. That's Tampa. That's Tampa Bay. But Tampa Bay, we should have talked about this when we were in the East. They lost McClanahan for the year.
Mm-hmm.
He's just fantastic.
He was a Cy Young, early year Cy Young.
Right. And then there's another one of their starters is also going on the 10-day list. So
right.
they're in trouble with their pitching.
Yeah. And they were already short pitching to start the season. They were using their whatever they opener or whatever for a fifth starter quite a bit this year. But Tampa always figures it out. And I was talking to one of the guys at work about this. The Braves, the issue that, and this is the Braves of the old, had the same thing. They need to stay hungry, because if not, they're going to slide into the playoffs without any challenge. And then all of a sudden, everybody's 0-0. And I kind of thought this was with the dominant team of the 90s. They didn't know how to play in very competitive baseball, right? So those short series, it's not 162 games anymore. It's 7 games. And
the Braves of the 90s were built for the regular season.
Right. But, when you're 10 games in front since the second month of the season, I just hope they can, for Braves fans, they can stay hungry. And everybody's looking for faults in this team, this juggernaut. They're pitching, this guy's hurt, and they just plug in the next guy up, and that organization is the best in baseball. Texas, they just staying ahead of Houston. Houston just can't get past that 2.5. I thought Seattle was going to make a little run there.
Well, they did. Seattle's made a run.
Yeah, but they can't get. They were with 4.5 there for a minute, and then 6.5 at this time of season is kind of tough. Then we get to the East. Atlanta, 11 games over Philly. Like I said, I think they got 5 games up on the Dodgers for home field. Milwaukee. Yeah, go ahead.
I watched the highlights this morning before I went to church. I watched the highlights of the Miami and the Yankee game. Our boy Hernandez was behind the plate. It was awful. I mean, both announcers for both teams. It was awful. Pitches right down the middle were a ball. Pitches 6 inches, 8 inches outside were strikes. Angel Hernandez, and everybody was hollering at him from the dugout. Well, there's about 5 or 6 umpires that are just horrible.
Right.
C.B. Buckner and a few other ones. But this guy takes the cake. I mean, he's the worst.
There's a YouTube
umpire I think I've ever seen.
Channel that's dedicated to Angel Hernandez, and it's hilarious. And the thing is he's not consistently bad. He's not consistently bad to the outside, the inside. One game he's high, one game he's low. This dude, he's horrible, and he's horrible for the game. They need him gone. But anyway, I digress. The Phillies, Phillies are not playing bad ball. 65-53.
That's the team to watch, son. Just like you said, you picked them to go with the Astros, and you're right. I mean, if they get in, they didn't win anything last year, and they snuck into the playoffs, the last team, and then nobody could beat them. Right.
You get in. It's a new season. It's 6 teams, and you need 2 pitchers and a third guy, and a third guy bullpen, and that's how you win the playoffs, and have your team hot hitting wise when they go in. That always helps. Milwaukee 2.5 over Chicago. Chicago's past Cincinnati. I was talking to a guy at a card show I went to yesterday, Cubs fan. I was like, your poor guys started winning at the wrong time. They started winning right before the trade deadline, so they didn't do anything, and they probably won't make the playoffs. I mean, because they're going to have to win a division probably to make the playoffs.
Yeah, it's that they'll have to. Cincinnati and the Cubs and Milwaukee. Well, you'll look at the standings for the wild card anyway. But I'm pretty sure with that National League East, because if Miami starts winning again, they're going to get in. But they've lost some. They've been on a losing streak.
And the Dodgers, they've kind of run away with it since the All-Star break, which is kind of crazy because it was so close with the Diamondbacks and the Giants, and now they've just ran away.
Well, the Braves organization, we know that well because the Richmond Braves were here for years.
Right.
And we saw them on TBS. We know them. But I tell you, the Dodgers organization is one of the best, too. I mean, they don't even have the great players, and they're still winning.
Well, and they've always been the best. They always have. Everybody's like, oh, they got a lot of money. But I bet you when you look at Rookie of the Year awards, I bet you they lead by far Rookie of the Year. People from their team winning Rookie of the Year. And you don't do that with money. You do that with draft and smart trades. So you got to get – and they're probably the leader in international signings. Like now it's a draft situation, but they were the first to set up a school in South America and start picking up looking internationally harder than anybody else, and they really worked that to their advantage. Still do to this day. Let's look at wild card real quick. So Tampa, Houston, Toronto. I just laugh because Toronto's a half a game on Seattle, and all these baseball people were just poo-pooing Toronto at the beginning of the season. And I'm just like, hold on. They're playing in the best division. And just let them get their breath and let them go. And they might not make it, but
as long as they're not playing within the division, they're fine. Because I brought this up last week. They have the worst record in baseball within their division for a team that's contending.
Right.
Yeah, something like 9-23 against their own division.
It's not in their favor that two other teams in their division in the playoff right now. So Seattle's a half game back. Boston is still 3 games back. They're within, and the Yankees, they're within. They got a shot.
They got a shot. Everybody else is done.
Right. Angels is after them at 6.5. It's just nice to still see them kind of, but I just don't know what to make of them. I really don't.
Well, I mean, they've regressed. If people stop pitching to Ohtani, right. when that third baseman for Toronto ran into the dugout and cussed out his manager, telling him, "What the heck did you pitch to him for? He's the only guy on the team that can hit. You got to walk him." And so now they're not exactly walking him, but they're not throwing him strikes either. So if they put him on, so what? And he's digressing. And in fact, I know everybody's going to say he's got to win the most valuable player, but right now, if I was voting right now, a lot can happen between now and October. If I was voting right now, the 2 guys in the American League that I would favor for the most valuable player, one would be Seager with Texas. Since August 2nd, since July 2nd, I think he's hitting 353 since he's come back from the injury. And the other guy who is just being phenomenal is Kyle Tucker.
Yeah, but what everybody looks at with Ohtani is the two-way play.
Right, and I understand.
And I mean, he's in the top of every offensive category. And pitching, he's pretty.
But he hasn't hit a home run in 11 games, and his batting average has dropped 12 points.
And when they don't pitch to you, we've seen this before when Harper, the last year Harper was with the Nationals, and the Cubs didn't pitch to him. And the frustration he had sunk the rest of his season when he was having an MVP caliber season. The same thing, because Shohei knows if we're going to do anything, it's on my back. It's me. I'm the guy.
Right.
So he's probably swinging at pitches he wouldn't have before, just trying to make something happen. And you got to kind of look at that. Like you said, it's him and Rendon. The other guy, Marsh, Marsh, the center field. No, that's the Phillies center fielder. But with Trout out, it just kind of if Trout was there, I think we'd be having a different conversation. We'd be talking about them on the cusp of being in or out. We'll go to the West, and so we have Atlanta. Dodgers, like I said, they're like 5 games behind it. Milwaukee. Philly is the first wild card team. So we remember a month ago, they were the 3rd wild card team.
Right.
So now they're the first wild card team, San Francisco and the Cubs. Cincinnati's a half a game out.
You reckon the Cincinnati and Cubs series from here on out are going to be important?
Well,
Wow.
let's talk about this for a minute. You remember at the beginning of the year we were poo-pooing on both Central divisions.
Right.
Right now, the Cubs we got Milwaukee. The Cubs have the third spot, and Cincinnati's a half a game back. And the Cubs could catch, and they're only a game behind the Giants. So the Giants could fall out, and you have 3 teams from the Central Division.
Yep. And we were just bad mouthing.
And we dogged them. We were talking how bad that division, both Centrals were at the beginning of the year.
Shows you what I know.
Right. I mean, about any of us, we thought about for sure the National League East and National League West was going to dominate this year. And, you know, I mean, Philly's up there. You got Miami right behind Cincinnati. They're actually tied with Cincinnati for right outside. And then you have everybody else. Arizona's 3 games. So they're within a shout, but they're not. They're sliding backwards. San Diego, they've slid backwards. They're 5 games. Then everybody else.
San Diego's had about 4 or 5 player only meetings, and whenever you do that, you know you're having problems.
Well, they should have been sellers. I think they should have sold at the at the trade deadline. A lot of teams this year were really hesitant to make deals, or either they were asking for way too much.
Yeah, exactly.
I was surprised the Mets got what they got, especially from the Astros, knowing the place that everybody knew the Mets were trying to deal those two. And those 2 guys were only going to go to teams that were going to have a snowball's chance to win. So they went to play for the Astros, or they should. What I should have said is they don't have a snowball's chance. They're getting traded for the Mets. They want to go to a contender. So going to the Astros, Rangers, and the players they got back, the 2 guys they got back from the Astros. I mean, the Chiefs might be able to beat the New York Mets right now. That's the AAA team for the Mets. One of the guys, I think, went from high A to double A, but I think everybody else they got in those trades went to AAA. I know a couple of guys they brought up at Mendick and Ortega. Whew. I hope they never see the majors again. God, they're bad. But anyway, they're trying to save Marciano for next season. Ronnie, he's just killing it, AAA. But anyway, I keep talking about my team. That's pretty much it in a nutshell. A little shuffling. What makes this as fun this time of year is the wild card. The wild card, watching teams shuffle around, and the difference, whenever, what is it? Is it next week or the week after they can expand to 1 more player roster spot? I think when they used to be able to
right around the 1st of September.
Right, they used to expand to like 10 or 12. You would have a whole.
Well, they used to bring up about 20. They used to bring up about 20 players, and now it's only about 3.
It might have been a whole 40-man roster. Well, I think they're only allowed to have 1 more.
There's
28. They go from 27 to 28.
Oh, and I remember I meant to bring this up. Our draft show, you and I talked. We weren't sure exactly how many rounds it went.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I know the Nationals. I looked up their draft.
Yeah,
and they went 10 rounds. So I don't know.
Yeah, and they used to go not too long ago. It was 27.
They used to go 27, and then during COVID, they went back to 5.
And then, but it used to be, I mean, before that, but
people used to get drafted in the 40th round.
Yeah, I forget when Piazza got drafted. It was something ridiculous. But they're cutting it down. I've listened to more and more general managers. I really think that the minors, we might lose a couple of leagues in the minor leagues coming up in the next few years. And maybe that'll add more independent teams or independent ball or semi-pro, whatever you want to call it. Because when you talk to a general manager and they only got 8 to 15 guys in your system that are serious prospects, you're going to have a guy all of a sudden. You're going to have a story like Mike Piazza that comes up, and
it'll happen once in a while.
Yeah, and I mean, it still can happen with all these independent leagues that they have. I mean, we have one in the town I work in that draws a good crowd. Baseball down here is huge in the summer. There's minor league parks everywhere down here in North Carolina. It's amazing. So when it comes to that, I was talking to somebody and they said, well, that's depressing for the towns because some of these towns, that's, they love to go out to watch the games. And it's true. But you just go one town over and there's another team there. I know in Iowa there's a bunch of minor league too when I was living out there. There's more in Virginia than I thought there was too when I started looking into it, especially when you go in the Appalachia.
They have the Appalachian League.
Yeah, you got
let's face it. You shoot a bear, catch a trout, or go to a ball game. That's all you got to do out there.
That's right. So I mean, that's just gotta remember that. But so we're getting into the dog days. Anything that is catching your eye, Dad? I like to ask you this every week.
There's a few things. One, last night's game, the Diamondbacks celebrated their 25th year of existence. This is their 25th season, and they had a celebration, and they won, which broke a 9-game losing streak. Also, I heard before I went to bed last night that Orioles were playing on the West Coast in Seattle, that Jim Palmer was in the hospital with COVID. And he said he thanked him for people sending cards and, letting him know they were thinking about him. And he said this COVID is no joke. He was really sick. He was in the hospital.
Right. We got a guy with COVID right now.
And then the other thing, these are kind of cute. In Toronto, Joey Bats went back there for he had a 1-day contract and retired.
Okay.
Bautista.
Yeah.
And he retired as a Blue Jay. And I thought that was, that was cool. I mean, that was right. And when he gave us the little speech, he said, I'm not going to talk long because you didn't come here to look at me. You came here to watch baseball. So thank you, everybody. I love all of you. Let's play ball. And he walked away.
He didn't do a bat flip. They didn't give him a bat to flip.
They had a big picture out on the center field wall of him doing the bat flip.
Bat flip.
And then the other thing, and this is one of those little ridiculous things that I run across. Dansby Swanson, playing in Toronto for the Cubs, hit a home run last night. He is the only player by the way, the Cubs beat Toronto Friday and Saturday. Anyway, he's the only player in Major League history to hit a home run in 3 different countries. The United States, Canada, and Mexico. Because they played in one of those games in Mexico City or something.
Oh, so when he was in the Major League.
See, they didn't tell me where the third one was, but that's the only third one I could think of because the only other place they played.
Did somebody play in London this year?
That might be it too. I don't know.
And I mean,
I have to look it up because it didn't tell me where the third.
Who played the kickoff? You remember a few years ago in Australia, they played at that cricket field?
Yeah, that could have been it too. But he's the only one. He would have been with Atlanta then.
Right. And I can't remember if that was before he was with Atlanta. I don't know if Atlanta even played it. I'm trying to remember the 2 teams.
I might have to look that up because they just said he had hitting the 3, and I knew, it was the United States and Canada. I was just guessing at the third one.
Right. Yeah, I mean, because, he played at Vanderbilt. He has a college World Series ring. So he's one of the few that has a college World Series and a MLB World Series. The other thing, since I ran across this too, and it's the Major League record for everybody since the All-Star game. Now, this is yesterday morning. This is before the games yesterday afternoon or last night.
This was the records since the All-Star game. The Dodgers and the Mariners were 17-8, and they were tied for the lead. The Orioles were 18-9. The Rangers, Cubs, Astros, and Phils were 16-8. Now, going down the other end of the list, the Braves were 12-13, Padres 12-13, the Rays 11-13, the Reds 10-16, and the Diamondbacks 5-19.
I would hate to what the Mets were, because I don't think the Mets have won but like 2 or 3 games since the All-Star.
Yeah, well, I didn't mention everybody.
Oh, okay. Yeah, my God. Well, I mean, you're talking about the teams that are relevant.
Well, not only that, but I mean, the only reason the Diamondbacks had the worst record,
right?
And since the All-Star break, and the only reason I mentioned them was because they were rolling, they were leading their division.
Before going into the All-Star break, they were 8 games. I mean, it seemed like they were running away with it. Then all of a sudden, they just couldn't win. And I mean, because they had good pitching, good relief.
Well, they can't score. They cannot score.
They were having. That's what they were. They were having timely hitting. They were scoring runs without hitting home runs, and it was, even my man Jake McCarthy was having a great stretch where he hit like 17 and 19 games and RBIs. It's a guy from Virginia. That's why I bring it up. But he was struggling early or hurt early in the year. Corbin Carroll can't. I think, what has he got? He is he's got 20 some home runs and 35 stolen bases.
Something like that.
You got Bobby Witt is in the 2020 club right now. He just did it. He's the only player, the youngest player to ever do that or whatever. And everybody wants to poo-poo on him about not being as great. I'm like, he's played for the Royals on a bad team. What do you give some of these kids a little bit of leeway? Just a little.
If you're doing well on a bad team, that says something.
Right. And when you're the leading hitter, you're not going to get all the pitches. The guys around you are, and they have to produce for you to start getting better pitching. If you look at, most hitters, you exclude Barry Bonds and you put in most hitters. I don't know if Mickey Mantle would have been the greatest hitter if he wasn't in a murderer's row, right? I don't know, like, some of these guys would not have been as great. Frank Thomas' great years was with guys around him that could hit as well.
Right.
That's
what makes players like Ernie Banks
right
exceptional, because he played for the Cubs.
Right.
He played for the Cubs when I was a kid, and the Cubs and the Phillies were bringing up the back of the National League every year. And then Dale Long, who was a first baseman, played for the Washington Senators for a while. Mm-hmm. And the joke during the when I was a kid was the Senators, first in peace, first in war, and last in the American League. That was the joke. So I mean, when you were a decent player with one of those teams, that's exceptional. The Yankees traded for Roger Maris. Mm-hmm. So Roger Maris is hitting fourth, and Mantle is hitting third, and Yogi's hitting fifth. So what do the pitchers do? You can't walk the whole team. So he was protected. He was going to get good pitches to hit.
And I'm not saying Mantle wouldn't have been Mantle or somewhere else, because he was.
I'm just
saying. I was just throwing that out there. I'm not trying to ever.
Well, let me put it to you this way: if Mike Trout wasn't hurt, and they had one other player to put around Ohtani, how good would he be?
Because you had him protected with Rendon and Trout on either side of him.
There you go.
And
now they're out, and Ohtani's up there flailing because they won't pitch to him.
Right. Well, speaking of a bad team, we're going to talk about the A's. A's have they do have a rookie guy that's burning up the base paths. He might be hurt right now, but that is the team. Since we talked about one team that from Philly last week, we're going to talk about the team that left Philly. So Take it away, Dad.
All right. Well, the Oakland Athletics now, also known as the Oakland A's, of course, they're in the American League West. Um, the team plays its home games at the Oakland Coliseum. And throughout their history, the Oakland or the Athletics in 3 different cities have won 9 World Series. So they've had some accomplishments in their tenure. They've won 9 World Series. They were one of the American League's 8 charter franchises. The team was founded in Philadelphia in 1901 as the Philadelphia Athletic. They won 3 World Series championships in 1910, 1911, and 1913. They had back-to-back titles in 29 and 30. The team's owner and manager for its first 50 years was Connie Mack. Now, this day and age where they fire a manager every 30 minutes or a coach if in 2 years, if you don't win, we got to fire you.
Right.
This guy was there for 50 years.
Right.
They had Hall of Fame players, but they had some great players. Chief Bender, Frank Home Run Baker, Jimmy Double X Fox, and Lefty Grove. Now, I've had people say, why do you call him Jimmy Double X Fox? Because there was another Jimmy Fox that played in the major leagues at the same time, and it was FOX, not FOXX. So that's why he was called Double X. And he was the only one to make the Hall of Fame, but there was another Fox. And, of course, Lefty Grove is one of the greatest pitchers of all time. The team left Philadelphia for Kansas City in 1955. That was the year after St. Louis Browns moved to Baltimore and became the Orioles. So once they moved, that set everything in motion, because then Philadelphia moved to Kansas City. The next year, the Dodgers moved to L.A., and the next year, San Francisco got the Giants. So that's what started all the movement, and it went bam, bam, bam,
Went
bam,
to the
bam.
West, yeah.
Yeah.
They expanded to the West.
All right, the team left Philadelphia for Kansas City in 1955 and became the Kansas City Athletics before moving on to Oakland in 1968. They were nicknamed the Swingin' A's, and they won consecutive World Series in 72, 73, and 74. They had players like Dave Stewart, Sal Bando, Vida Blue, Catfish Hunter, Reggie Jackson, Riley Fingers. They had Gene Tennis was the catcher. That was a loaded team. And Charlie Finley, the crazy guy, was the owner. And he had him in Kansas City too. After being sold by Finley to Walter Haas Jr., the team won 3 consecutive pennants and the 1989 World Series behind the Bash brothers, Jose Canseco and Mark McGuire, as well as Hall of Famers Dennis Eckersley, Ricky Henderson, and manager Tony La Russa. Another really good team. In 2002, the Athletics set the record for the most consecutive wins in a single season with 20, an event that would go on to be the pioneering step in the application of sabermetrics in baseball. Following the California Golden Seals relocation to Cleveland in 1976, that was a hockey team, the Golden State Warriors moved across the bay to San Francisco in 2019, and the Oakland Raiders moved to Las Vegas in 2020. The Athletics were left as the only Oakland franchise among the 5 major American professional sports leagues with teams in the San Francisco Bay Area. So on April 20th, 2023, the Athletics announced that they had entered a land purchase agreement with the Red Rock Resort in Paradise, Nevada, which is near Las Vegas. Finalizing their plans to leave Oakland and move to the Las Vegas Valley, and on May 9th, 2023, the Athletics then switched their planned location to the Tropicana, where the Tropicana casino is and hotel in Las Vegas. That's going to be torn down and make room for a 30,000 seat, partially retractable ballpark and a 1,500 room hotel and casino. By June 15, 2023, Nevada Governor Joe Lombardo signed an MLB stadium funding bill known as SB1 into law, and after it was approved by the Nevada legislature, the Athletics officially announced they would begin the relocation process to Las Vegas. It probably won't be till late this decade because they got to build a ballpark and everything, but they're on the move. From 1901 to 2022, the Athletics' overall win-loss record was 9,210 wins and 9,654 losses for a 488 average. The name Athletics came from the old athletic gentlemen's clubs that they had back in the mid 19th century. That was pre-Civil War when they started. They were gentlemen's clubs, and in 1860 they had a Philadelphia team called the Athletic Gentlemen's Team or something like that. But they were the team it was the Athletics team from Philadelphia. That's what it was. In 1876, they became a charter member of the National League. But after 1 year, they got kicked out. I looked and looked. I couldn't find anything on
I've heard a story about that, and I can't remember what the story exact. I want to say it was an argument between the owner and the president or something in the National League.
Yeah, I tried to find it, and I couldn't find anything on it. And then during the 1905 season, John McGraw, who was with the New York Giants for a long time, he told Benjamin Shive, who owned the team, the Athletics then, that he had a white elephant on his hands. That's what he told him. That's where the elephant came from. So
yeah, hopefully you had the story of that because I didn't.
Shive Park was named after him. That's where the Athletics and the Phillies played for a long time.
Right.
They shared that ballpark. Well, Shive Park, Shive, when the 1905 World Series, he walked around with a stuffed elephant under his arm at the World Series. In 1918 was the first year that the elephant was on the jersey as part of their mascot.
Right.
In 1963, now get this, in Kansas City, Charlie Finley did away with the elephant and adopted the mule because there were more Democrats in Kansas City than there were Republicans. And he wanted more people come to the ballpark. That's the way Charlie Finley thought. That's the way his mind worked. And so anyway, it was 1988 in Oakland when the elephant came back as the mascot of the Athletics. And the other thing that I forgot, because I just forgot, maybe it's because I watched games in black and white when I was a kid, but Charlie Finley, while the team was in the 1960s, while the team was in Kansas City, changed the colors. The colors were red, white, and blue. And he changed the colors from that to the green, gold, and white that it is today. And for the people looking, the reason I've got an A's hat is because my grandson, your nephew, played Little League baseball for two teams. All the time he came up in baseball, he played for 2 or 3 years for the Athletics. So I had an athletic hat to wear out there.
I have one for the same reason.
Yeah, you have one too. I mean, I've got a River Dogs hat that he had as a River Dog when he played T-ball, and I still got that hat. But that's it for the A's. I did look at some of their. I've noticed one thing with doing the recap of all these teams. A lot of the teams that they have in their Hall of Fame, are well-known, prestigious ball players for their teams, played for a lot of different teams. They're on the Hall of Fame, like Nellie Fox. Nellie Fox played for the Athletics maybe 2 years, but I remember Nellie Fox growing up. He was the second baseman for the White Sox.
Right.
And I mean, that's where he was. That was his. He went. That's his claim to fame, was playing for the White Sox. He was the one that had the big barrel bat and choked up on the bat.
First thing I did, I was like, Al Simmons. I don't even remember Al Simmons playing with the A's, but
I don't either.
They got him on here.
But see, that's what I mean is these all-stars, they put them on if you're an all-star with the St. Louis Cardinals, let's just say you played for the Cardinals, and you got traded to the Phillies the last year or two of your career, the Phillies might put you up as one of their, because you're an all-star, and they might stick you up there too. And I've noticed that's a lot of them, because I noticed I just picked up.
Oh, well, I'm sorry. That is not the Al Simmons I'm thinking of now that I'm looking at it. This is a light, I can't even say, Harry Simmons This is with the Philadelphia Athletics. So they got it broken down into 3 groups that I'm looking at here.
That's way back there.
Yeah, so because they got Nap
LaJoie.
Well, it's Lajoie. I got corrected at the show.
Well, I've heard people call that Nap LaJoie my whole life.
I did too, but I got corrected. So I was like, okay, Herman Baker. I mean, so I'm sure one of my buddies that collects Philadelphia stuff, they'll tell me the right way. So I mean, but still, I was like, wow. I mean, Reggie Jackson went back and forth. He played with them 2 different times.
Well, Reggie Jackson, I guess he's best known. He was great he was on that super team the A's had. Then of course he went with the Yankees.
So they got Mike Piazza's on this list. Joe Morgan, Frank Thomas. They only played 1 season.
Right, 1 season.
I don't even remember Rock Raines on there. Catfish Hunter played his majority. Goose Gossage.
Yeah, I mentioned him. Catfish Hunter was one of the best pitchers of his era.
Right. And Harold Baines.
Well, you have to remember one thing. Oakland had powerhouse pitching staffs. And those 3 teams in the 70s that won the World Series. And they with Vita Blue.
Yeah, and I mean Hunter, in the what was it, the Bay Bridge series or whatever. You got to remember that was historic for the earthquake.
Well, that's when they had the pictures of Billy Martin was the manager, and he wouldn't go to his bullpen.
Yeah,
he had him pitch complete games the whole year. And when they got to the end of the year, they were done.
So I mean, it was for another historic team that right now you feel bad for the fans. They don't deserve it. They're a very great fan base. We've talked about it before. Go to Las Vegas. I hope the fans pick up San Francisco or something, or Major League Baseball gets a team there.
Well, the other thing about Oakland, and I forgot to mention it, was that of course that's Billy Ball. That's the team that Billy Ball was based on, because he used smoke and mirrors to build ball teams. Would it's like right now the Orioles, the Orioles are have the second best record in baseball behind the Braves, and everybody on that team together makes less money than 5 of the Mets when they signed them.
Yeah, but that's going to change once those contracts come up. You got some superstars in the making there.
Well, the one thing that hurt the Mets this year is not only did they give up Scherzer and Verlander, they had to send money with them.
Yeah, but I've told people before, this owner, that's nothing to him. What they got back in return, when you look at those trades, and I mean, of course, we won't know for 10 years if the Mets won or not in these trades. But when you look at the potential that they have, they got 10 guys that now they can either bring up, keep in their system, or trade to get younger, better arms, right? They have depth now, in their very deep depth in their minor league system. I mean, I think they have 7 or 8 in the top 100 as in their top 10 list. And other teams can't say that. Their top 10 list changed dramatically after the trade deadline for prospects. So that's one thing you got to remember when you talk about the money and everybody's like, oh, I heard somebody also call the Mets a experiment. And I was like, it's not an experiment. The owner, it's not like he went out and like got 2 guys that were center fielders and made them pitchers. He went and got 2 guys that are Cy Young winners that won World Series and go, win me one. And it didn't work because they're 5 years past that. So
yeah, he didn't. The team, first of all, the Mets are not the first team to do this. They've had teams. I mean, I remember a few times the Yankees have gone out and tried to buy another championship and it failed.
But the Mets,
right now, the Yankees are paying. They had the second highest payroll behind the Mets, and what are they doing?
I mean, they got Anthony Rizzo, Stanton. They got all these, Josh Donaldson. I mean, they're still doing that. But the Mets only got two guys. Well, then they got Lindor too. But Lindor, since the All-Star break, has been one of the best hitters in baseball. I mean, he picked a heck of a time to start hitting the baseball when they're 20 games out. But, you know, but anyway, I digress. I keep talking about my team when this is a baseball. We like to talk about baseball, but, you know, I guess we are talking about baseball when we talk about a team. But anyway, Oakland, fun stuff there. Deep history, World Series, left Philly. A lot of people say the wrong team left. It's funny when I hear that. But anyway, thanks for that, Dad. And anything for closing before we get out of here?
No, it's just the season's only going to get more exciting because we're getting closer and closer. I mean, you got the month of August and the month of September, but they call the dog days of August because this is when people start getting nicked up and hurt. They get tired, and I mean, it's just we'll just have to see who can survive. I will say this: I heard Ron Darling on MLB. He's one of my favorite people on that talk about baseball on MLB because he's extremely knowledgeable and he knows the game.
Ex Oakland A.
And also a Met.
Yeah, well, he won the World Series with both teams. I believe with Oakland he won.
But
with Mark.
He said that he honestly believes that. He said, I honestly believe that the Milwaukee Brewers have the best manager in baseball.
I said that last week.
Yeah, we both agreed with that last week. He said, I said, well, this guy knows his game. And he said the same thing. He said, this guy, with the players he's got, to do what he does year after year after year is outstanding. And the other thing is, and I agree with him here too, is he said the West, the race in the American League West is going to be really exciting when you put Bruce Bochy, up against the old man in Houston. So
right.
You got Dusty Baker and Bruce Bochy going head to head. That it doesn't get any better than that.
Right. And I mean, that's fun times. I can't wait for the playoffs to get here because I think the playoffs are just going to be fantastic games. It's a lot of good baseball yet to be played, history to be made. We got two guys that are battling for the MLB home run title, and with what is it? Is it Chapman? Which one? I get Chapman and Matt Olson, right? And
yeah, Matt Olson's he hit 2 last night, so he's leading.
Yeah, so and Shohei has an outside. He's got a slim chance at the American League. At Judge's record. So we'll watch, and like you said, he's not going to see pitches, and when he does, he's going to have to square him up to do it. But we'll watch and hashtag watch the games. So for Pop and for me, thanks for watching. Thanks for the thumbs ups, and thanks for the comments. I really appreciate it. A lot of support out there for us to just keep going. And we just love this sport. Us too. We love sports, but baseball is definitely our heart. So until next time, like, share, tell a friend, and we'll see ya.